So, flags. We see them all the time across all categories of motorsport. From club level Sierras and things like that at Croft all the way up to the big leagues of IndyCar, the World Rally Championship, the World Endurance Championship, and of course, Formula 1. And without the men and women in orange who wield these flags on a Sunday afternoon for free, there'd be no racing. We need them, and every time something happens there is going to be a lot of colour spread out in certain sections of the track as the drivers get updates on what the hell it is that's actually going on around them. So with that said, here's some fun with flags and how each one ended up became the de facto code for something at least. Now the use of flags for indicating certain things goes right back to the early days of motor racing, the big money events first being held on French public roads within the first few years of the motor car being a thing. If the car was invented on the Thursday, it would have been raced on the Friday. Flags have been used to signal certain things long before motorsport came along, being in use on battlefields and on ships as a clear way of indicating to the sailors on the boats and the soldiers on the ground as a way of saying, this is a signal to do something. Charge, retreat, get ready, whatever might be the case. So when it came to these cars whizzing around the French countryside, the marshals at the side of the track needed something to indicate to drivers that something was going on. So they basically used the same system. A piece of cloth that was a certain colour, and then would use that to convey messages to the drivers, well, without words. And then at some point it became standardised in inverted commas because there is no real standardised system today. In one of those old roads in France, a yellow flag can mean compulsory pit stop, while a blue flag would mean slow down. I did find a piece from the 1906 Vanderbilt Cup that was held in Syracuse, New York in 1906. There, they used their own system, which, if you're used to the current system in use across the world, this will be very confusing. Red meant that the coast was clear and you could continue racing. White meant that you had to stop so that someone could inspect your car, check your car for damage or some other check, it's not clear exactly what they were checking. Yellow meant stop, now. Blue meant that there was an accident on the course and you needed to slow down and take care, just like in France. And green meant that there was one lap left to run. But there was also another flag in use at this race. The checkered flag. The actual first use of the checkered flag is a little bit disputed, but either way its first use in motor racing was in 1906, either at the Glidden Tours, a rally in the United States, or at the Vanderbilt Cup in New York. The story at the rally is that the course was divided into sections. Sidney Walden, the organiser, had each stage timekeeper have these flags so they could be easily identified. They were also dressed in black and white checkered overalls as well, depending on which story you read. This was all done so the drivers knew who had the times. But either way, the Vanderbilt Cup is the first time that a checkered flag was photographed being in use to signify the end of the race. A French driver won that race, I think it was. I can't remember the name, it's lost on me. But it's now something that has transcended motorsport. Whether you're a motorsports fan or not, you know what a checkered flag is and what it means. There's also myths going around on the internet that suggest that the checkered flag was borrowed from horse racing along with other things like pole position, but yeah, that was just a two-colour banner that was used to differentiate the end of the race from everything else that was going on. Unfortunately, doing some hardcore Googling doesn't drum up any specific dates for when this standardised flag system came into effect, but it must have happened around the same time traffic lights became common on the roads. The first of these electronic traffic lights was installed on the corner of East 405th and Euclid Avenue in Cleveland, Ohio in 1912, while the first of the traditional American four-way lights was installed in Detroit, Michigan in 1920. The latter had the three-colour system that we know on the roads today. Green is go/all clear. Yellow, orange or amber, whatever you want to call it based on your traffic lights in your country, means caution, while red is danger or stop. But those three colours have meant that ever since. Green means that everything is good, yellow means be careful, and red is some sort of danger. I mean, we have it on our food packets in the UK. Tells you, come on autofocus, there we go, tells you what's good and what's bad about this particular snack. I mean, other brands of tortilla chips are available. So at some point between then and the formation of the FIA Formula 1 World Championship, those colours became a standard, if that makes any sense. And the first time that a red flag was used to stop a Formula 1 Grand Prix that was not the Indy 500 was the 1971 Canadian Grand Prix, when Jackie Stewart was declared the winner after 64 of the 80 laps it was supposed to run because of fog and rain. The first time a race was stopped with a red flag and then restarted was the 1971 British Grand Prix, when there was a crash involving Jody Scheckter and 8 other drivers at the end of the first lap. Scheckter had tried to overtake Denny Hulme on the outside of Woodcote, and the South African was spun across the track and into the pit wall, and then carnage ensued. There's also something a little different about the red flag and the checkered flag, as it so happens. The standard size of all the other flags is 60cm by 80cm, at least in the UK, while red and checkered flags are required to be 80 by 100cm, so they're easier to see, as these denote the end of a session or the abandonment of a session. And I've actually been on a racetrack with those flags waving. You can definitely see them. Other flags were added as the Formula 1 World Championship got going, and these other flags were in use by at the latest 1967. A red and yellow vertical striped flag indicates that there is some sort of liquid on the track, whether that's oil or water, and you might have seen this on the electronic flag system at Sochi when it gushed it down a couple of years ago. A black flag with an orange circle is shown to indicate that a driver has damage to the car and under safety rules must be fixed before they can continue racing. This is shown often in the BTCC as the front bumpers and wheel arches can get smashed up and flicked out and all that stuff, and it could cause punctures and things like that. And 2 more that have 2 totally different meanings on either side of the Atlantic, the white and the blue flags. In Europe, the white flag means that there is a slow moving car on the track, whether that is a competitor or something like a safety or medical car. This flag will also be shown in practice sessions when you have cars at the end of the pit lane doing practice starts or getting out onto the track. If you watch GP Lap's recent video where he raced the 1966 German Grand Prix, it can be shown if a car has started to slow down because of a problem, like when he passed Lorenzo Bandini Glock style at the final corner. It's a good video, that. I liked it. In America though, the white flag means that there is 1 lap remaining. Pretty simple stuff, and given that the Americans race on ovals a lot, it's a pretty good indication because you might lose track of time. The other is the blue flag, and this has changed meaning several times and there can be a lot of confusion about it. When the FIA brought in its standardised system with the flags, something that NASCAR, USAC, IMSA and others have all, I wouldn't say copied, but adapted to be similar, or the FIA did it to adapt to them, blue became the international symbol for a faster car approaching. Basically, you're being lapped or there is a car coming through on a timed lap in practice or qualifying. In Europe, it's a simple blue flag. In America, what you're more likely to see is a blue flag with a yellow stripe, which basically translates to faster car approaching, be careful. Now, racing fans who are primarily Formula 1 fans have been indoctrinated to believe that this means get out of the way now, but this hasn't always been the case. In the United States, there is no written racing law that says move over. A blue flag is merely advisory. For a long time, it was the same in Formula 1, and Jackie Stewart recalls them not existing at all at one point in his career and was something you just had to adapt to. It's why if you play iRacing or just watch stuff like IMSA, you're probably familiar with the blue flag and the yellow stripe. As we've already established, faster car approaching, be careful. But like I say, Formula 1 fans have got it into their heads that blue flag means get the hell out of the way or get penalised, and it's a hard habit to break when you're watching other forms of motorsport. I mean, I'm guilty of it. But it's interesting to note that this get out of the way or be penalised rule was not introduced into Formula 1 until 1995, when the likes of Jean-Denis Delatraz and these other 10 seconds off the pace pay drivers were getting in everybody's way, because the 107% rule didn't exist at this point. These days, you will get a penalty for ignoring blue flags for 3 stations. Nikita Mazepin was the last driver to cop a penalty for it, and before that, it was Sergio Perez and Danny Kvyat. But a blue flag will serve as a generic warning that there are faster cars approaching. There was a big furore after the 2021 Italian Grand Prix that Lewis Hamilton ignored blue flags, and it's why it's karma that Verstappen ended up on his head. But both cars were on the lead lap. The blue flags were flashing to tell Lewis that Lando, Max and anybody else was flying up to his position at over 200 miles an hour. And this is where you get into the ins and outs of what those flags are actually doing. If the flag is static, you are being advised. Hamilton's blue flag at Monza, for instance. If it is being waved, it is an order. They are waving it to get your attention. You'll have seen people get yelled at for failing to observe waved yellow flags as an example. Jacques Villeneuve in 1997, for instance. Stationary usually means that the incident is away from the track. Waved yellows means that the hazard is on the track, and then double waved yellows is like the double amber on a railway signal, at least on a UK one, slow down and be prepared to stop. It could also mean a full course yellow or a safety car, but the full course yellow and safety car boards would typically be shown in conjunction with the yellow flags. Unless it's iRacing, in which case yellow means hoof it and hope for the best. In the World Endurance Championship though, they use this cool flag. This is the Code 60 flag, which means slow down to 60 kilometers an hour or 37 miles an hour. It's their version of the virtual safety car. They can just give a portion of the track over to be driven at that speed, and then they can speed up and go at racing speeds elsewhere, particularly at somewhere like Spa or Le Mans. But it is interesting that in this modern era of GPS, electronics, automation and things like that, the communication between the race directors, the marshals and the drivers is still, to this day, done with simple pieces of cloth. Yes, FIA Grade 1 and Grade 2 tracks have the electronic boards at the side of the track, but they're doing the same job. And if you've ever been on a track with them, they are bright and they are super easy to see. I was at Silverstone in November and I got to see these things firsthand, and good God, they're bright. But I hope this has been something interesting for you. It would be cool to have exact dates of when these things were brought in and things like that for every single flag that the FIA and IMSA and all these other people use, but I've done the best I can either way. But if you have enjoyed this video, do give it a thumb up, maybe give it 2 thumbs up if you've got alt accounts and things like that, just to get the algorithm to do its thing, because still, if you haven't noticed, still trying to get better. But, you know, if you want to see more stuff like this, then get subscribed, get the bell on so you never miss out on anything I do here. Massive thanks to the kind folk at Patreon for the continued support, and if you want to help out with the image licensing, the monthly wage I take from the channel, or that sort of thing, the link to that is in the description box along with links to my socials. Or there's super thanks if you just want to do a one-off donation without tying yourself to a monthly thing. So until next time, I've been AdmiralLaWind, have a great day wherever you are, and I'll see you all again soon for another video. Goodbye.